Hello, everyone. Welcome to this promised episode. I suppose it would be of the War Report, but we do have a very special guest that was teased by our good co-host GSP. Of course, I am Constantine, and our guest that we have on today is Gio Penicietti. Hopefully, I did not butcher that, but if you'd like to go
No,
ahead
it's
and
English pronunciation. It's pretty good.
oh, well, thank you. But if you would like to go ahead and introduce ourselves to your wonderful audience, many of whom probably already know you, but give your elevator pitch.
Oh my God, what is my elevator pitch? Oh man, well, I am a artist and writer and pod conversationalist. I can't bring myself to say I have to take a shower every time I say the word podcast. No, I'm a podcast. Um, and you can find my stuff, Jenner Productions, which is both YouTube and patreon.com/Jenner Productions. And of course, I'm on Twitter, Giant Geo, and OG Frog, I guess you could say, content aficionado, content minded podcast, all that good stuff. Digital Archipelago is my other one. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Well,
what
I
I
mean,
like to
I
hear.
came across your work about 3 years ago, and then we
Oh wow,
finally
I think I saw you around. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
we finally met. We've met. Geo and I. We don't live too far apart, but I've always appreciated your artwork and your cultural input. You're a very astute
Yeah,
observer.
I think it was more than 3 years ago, if I recall. It was
I
like
th- I think it was
almost,
February. I think it was early February 2020, or it might have been
yeah,
February 2019.
it was
But it was
2019. Yeah. It was 2019.
yeah.
Yeah. And then so then you just he's like, "Hey, I'm coming down." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, man. Let's meet up." And rest is history. And
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. One of the only frogs I've been in real life. I try to I don't okay, just say this for public record. In case some weirdo, you know what, anti
Yeah.
you know what accounts. I have no affiliation with any public group in Canada. And as much as I like to, keep it real with people, I would love to meet people. I think maybe that's for the best. I have no associations. So yeah, I have no affiliations with any group. I've never talked to any head of any group of a certain variety, and I'm very much on my own man. And yeah, I mean, maybe if I move to the States one day, things will be different. But I have no affiliation with. So please, if CSIS is listening to this, I am not on any records. I have no affiliation or membership with any radical group. There
Look,
you
let me
go.
just clarify. Although GSP may be my Russian intelligence handler, your relationship is completely unrelated to that.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
He's not on Putin's payroll like me.
Not
No.
yet.
Not
Not
well.
yet.
It's impossible to get rubles in Canada nowadays.
Bistra. It's soon.
Well, I've talked to Putin assets before, but no, I haven't. No, I haven't. No, I'm sorry, I have not, but I may have. Anyways, no, it's impossible to get. Listen, I mean, he's got to do all this work to get rubles in Canada. I mean, he's got to hollow out a book. He has to send it through Taiwan, or well, it used to be Taiwan. He has to send it through Nicaragua first, and it's got to go. Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Horrible, yeah.
Yeah.
The true effects of the sanctions is really sad to see. I mean, this is what those sort of policies lead to. Innocent men cannot get their payments from their
Neat
Russian
bucks.
handlers. It's
Yeah.
it makes me weep. It makes me weep at night.
Oh my god. Yeah. So that's me anyway. So I'm glad to be on.
Thank you for
And
coming.
you
Oh yes,
guys
thank
run
you.
a good operation. And yeah, I've been listening to your stuff. So
We
military
appreciate it.
set. Yeah. So I was gonna break out with the Alexander Merkel. Imagine if he shouted you out like on the podcast, the War Report.
Yeah.
If only.
The Duran just gives you a shout out. Your subs just burst out. Yeah. Oh man.
Well, I think you have the privilege of being the most prominent guest since we interviewed Ryan Dawson about 3 years ago at this point.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Man, that's crazy. You got Ryan Dawson. Wow. That's a good catch.
Oh, Ryan will do
yeah.
anything.
One
No,
of
I'm
our
joking. I'm joking.
yeah, one of our former co-hosts. There's no
I
animus
couldn't
there, but
believe it. We got.
he had to leave the show for personal reasons. He arranged that, and it went off swimmingly. So far, you're competing with both Ryan Dawson and Vile Varangian. I think that's a pretty tough contest pool, but I think he can pull it off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, due to current situations, Vile Varangian has not been able to join us for his semi-annual appearance, which I suppose it'll happen. I suppose he's out there leading the front lines from Crimea, I suppose you could say. But I won't get into too much detail about my good friend's operations on the ground in Ukraine that may or may not be happening. But just to preface, our show is going to take the general same direction. Of course, it's only been a couple days since we did our last episode. We put that out on Sunday, so not too many new news updates. GSP does have a few retractions issue on his Minutia
Yes.
Minute, which know you all know and love. But we're going to focus a little bit on the news. But because of our esteemed guest, once again, I do want to keep it focused on a generally cultural directions, which I imagine you will all enjoy. But without further ado, I'll let you issue your correction before I get too deep into some of the stuff I have.
Yeah. So, on the last show, I mentioned that Arestovich basically promulgated. I don't know if it originated with him, but he promulgated this idea that Strelkov had tried to sneak into the southern war front in Kherson through Crimea. And I said, this is obviously a fake. Then I saw a whole bunch of other stuff saying it's not a fake, it's not a fake on Telegram. And I posted on the video in the comments section that I don't think it's a fake. It seems like it might be for real. And then one of our Russian listeners says, this is a fake. It's even old news now. People have even stopped laughing about it. So that is a fake. Strelkov never tried to sneak in. He wouldn't. I mean, it's actually preposterous. And when you really think about it, I was on the right track. My instincts were right, and then I just saw too many countervailing arguments, and I fell for it. So my apologies there. And the other correction I want to make is I was talking about the attack on the Saki Air Force Base in Crimea, not too far from Sevastopol. It's on the west side of the peninsula there. And although I still agree it's sabotage, I saw some new photos, and I saw them on, I believe it's called um, Leg- Legendary History Channel. He does like a very similar kind of platform that Dima from Military Summary Channel does. So lots of maps. But once I saw those photos, I've had to reevaluate a few things. So I saw 3 craters. One of the arguments that he posted was there is a type of missile that flies straight down and would be difficult to capture on camera. But there's a more complication because it doesn't have a very significant distance. It would still have to have been fired from Russian territory or Russian held territory because it's like a little bit over 100 kilometers. And this attack would have to have happened from at least 200. It also looks like these electrical power stations, they got blown out to smithereens. And it could be that their combustion started a chain reaction which began to blow up the other planes. So that to me still says sabotage, and it still seems like the Russians are really heavily infiltrated. And then this morning, of course, there was another incident in Crimea, and that was a uh, uh, weapons depot that blew up, and it was big. The Russians have actually said that that was sabotage. So for that one, they've, in less than 12 hours, they've said, yeah, this is sabotage. So those are the corrections. That's all the minutia minute I will do, I promise.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure you'll have more on whenever we put out our next episode, and I suppose that'll just depend on how quickly the news, particularly out of Ukraine, does move. But I suppose being the recording date of this is August 16th, we'll have this out, and if you're watching this earliest date possible, you will be seeing this on August 17th. Well, August 15th, 2021 was the withdrawal from Afghanistan, so that means August 15th, 2022, which is yesterday as the time of recording, marks the 1 year anniversary. Now, I'm sure you all recall the absolute botched withdrawal that we did a number of shows on in both the lead up to and the actual carrying out of said withdrawal, as well as a bit of the fallout, but it fell very quickly out of favor with the media, with even us at that point. Because after that, there really wasn't much to report about Afghanistan. Then it had fallen within a matter of really effectively had fallen within a matter of a day if you want to talk about taking Kabul, because of course the war wasn't officially over until the end of August 2021, but at that point, once you've taken Kabul, what's really left in Afghanistan if it's really of any major value to control? And I'm sure you all remember the reactions to it. You all remember the very, what's, I suppose, for lack of a better word, hostile reaction from all across the political spectrum, people of all ideas, and the blue check class, as I'm sure you all know and love, very viscerally saying this was botched. What about the brave women? What about the LGBTQ CIA community? Or what about anything else within Afghanistan? And the fall of that, and how after just shy of 20 years of war, because we stayed a couple months longer, October, that would have marked 20 years. There was this, I could say, understandable outcry watching such a disaster unfold in front of all of us after however many billions were sunk. I mean, at that point, trillions were sunk into that war. What about 2,000 killed, and on top of just all the other nonsense that came out of that. And a year later, it went by with really no recognition, no public statements from the White House or Biden in particular, or any other politician, or even within media coverage, the extent that I still keep up with this will that the mainstream media puts out. Seems like this has been all completely erased from the record. It's a black mark that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody even wants to use it to push any sort of agenda, like we must help the women there or whatever. I mean, the most recent news out of Afghanistan was the alleged Zawahiri assassination, which, of course, that makes about the third or fourth time he's been assassinated. But Afghanistan has disappeared from the public consciousness, so it is not a surprise, especially considering the fact just 6 months later the entire debacle with Ukraine had happened. But I just think it's fascinating because I figured there would have been at least some sort of recognition from somebody of prominence, no matter what angle they were taking from it.
I mean, I think there were a lot of interesting takeaways. I won't go over all of them because maybe you guys have a few in mind. But I think one of the things that Afghanistan triggered in the liberals was witnessing really for the first time the people that they considered the extreme right kind of take the side on the Taliban. Now, a lot of this was ironic, and
yeah.
Like I remember the the Taliban Pepe memes that came out.
The Talachads, remember that?
Yeah.
The Talachads.
I remember going into work and showing them pictures of steal this look. And it was I thought that was so awesome.
Oh,
I can't believe like how well it went. People were cracking up. Totally inappropriate, but they loved it. So
there were very aesthetic pictures, like when they were in the water park and everything. Like that was amazing.
yeah. And even the first gen Taliban, like they were even snappier dressers.
Yeah.
They had like these bright orange shawls, a camo green. Like
I
A lot
wanted to
of
paint some of them. I
a lot
think I
of
drew
drip.
some of them. Yeah, I shouldn't admit that in public, but
So I think you know the liberals are already onto conservatives no longer really wanting to fight for the country, even and then going to the next level, cheering on anybody who like humiliates America.
yeah,
And that guy Vincent Fox, he got written about because he literally tweeted or said something like, I think, and they banned him shortly after. But I remember he was in an article. I don't recall whether it was Politico or not, but they caught it was almost word for word. It was not exact because I remember exactly what he said, and but it was something to the effect like, "Hell yeah," I'm really paraphrasing here, by the way. Anytime that GAE gets humiliated, I'm all for it, and they were completely horrified by this,
oh yeah.
and so I thought that was interesting that, and since then, of course, I mean, I see people on YouTube literally posting shit like, um, in our country, we have a problem with the alt-right, and many of their ideas are shared with the Taliban. Like,
What's the chicken and the egg though when it comes to radical Islam
yeah,
and alt-right ideas? I mean, well, I have a few takes, but a few theories I'll take. But
yeah,
maybe
go ahead.
Constantine, do you want to go first, or are you finished, Corin?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm done.
yeah, you can go ahead and go take care of it, and yeah, I'll come back around and finish it off.
Okay. I think that if you look at the history of, I would say, largely North American culture war, minutia, then you would see that I think in a way it symbolized a breaking off of one mode of culture war that was largely centralized upon most like common media nodes, especially what I like to call conservatard TM. You have like sort of the Bush era neocon conservatism of people like Mark Stein and Robert Spencer, not Richard Spencer, Robert Spencer, the Muslim or ex-Muslim. I don't know. Like you have like a bunch of like ex-Muslims aligning with people of a certain other variety on the neocons to basically, like people like Hershey Ali, to basically go against their enemy, radical Islam, and they had to like do this real like butchery of a lot of different academic literature to make the argument. Like I remember that one book that I remember, I think it was Fox News or something advertising it all the time. Or it was actually advertised in back when not Rebel News, Sun News was still around. The book, the what was it called? The Marriage of like Radical Islam and the Left. Do you remember this
Yes, I,
stuff?
I,
Yeah.
I, I do. And it's funny
Yeah.
you bring up Richard Spencer. Like, I know this guy. I literally knew
You mean
who
Robert
Richard.
Spencer?
Yeah, yes, Robert Spencer. I
Yeah.
literally knew who Robert Spencer
Not the
was.
hairdo. Robert Spencer. Yeah, go ahead. You knew
No,
him?
well, I mean, I knew of him.
Yeah.
Harry Spencer rather than hairdo Spencer.
Yeah,
So wait,
the hairy one. Yeah. Dot
he
feather.
let me just say, for a Spencer, he really doesn't look like a Spencer, but
Yeah.
that's something else. But he had like a cooperative thing that he did with this other woman. Uh, I forget her name. I think it might have been with the G, but that's an excellent
Geller?
point because I think that was the first attempt to try to link the left with radical Islam,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say that that was one sort of like top-down culture war mode where
Mm,
you had like Bill O'Reilly, and after like this is like after 9/11, and then when I was like, I mean, I hate to say it now, but like one of my first red pills when I was like, I want to say 13 years old, was reading America Alone by Mark Stein when it first came out. And that was like the narrative of, you had the burgeoning migrant crisis in Europe, which I mean, no one like really cares about anymore, but it's still like a thing of everyday life, which is in some ways even worse because it's no
mm,
longer a weirdo like right wing version of or like alt light version of the state of exception where you still have people like dragging up things like Lauren Southern wanted to kill migrants. It's like, no, it's like she did worse than that, actually. Well, anyways, not to chastise someone, but like, so you have this top-down model of culture war that is very much in line with the Samuel P. Huntington.
Yep.
And some people, I think me and you were discussing this in person, where Huntington, or it may have been a point from Keith Woods, where like Huntington purposely avoids other aspects like race, and he like goes for these like civilization models and religion. But by the time the 2010s comes about, in my opinion, this older model of culture war is no longer sufficient because
Yep.
Americans and like by an extent Westerners become largely insular and don't really care about foreign affairs until like the current special military operation in the blue yellow country. It's sort of like a reawakening of like geopolitics to America, but the only way it is sold to the average like westernoid is that it has to be hooked up to the same model of domestic culture war politics. So like the whole civilization model of like George W saying like, well, we're in a crusade, and it's like that being pointed out by left-wing media. Like at the time you had like underground left-wing media, you had like Democracy Now before what's her name, Amy Goodman, became like, Trump broke her brain like everyone else, or like even Chris Hedges before Trump broke his brain. You had people like that were pointing out that this was really just the same old like imperialist model, and that it's not really going to serve the interests of Western people, and they were largely correct. And so you have this attempt to gain credence to this thesis that because the left has this like weirdo like post-colonial theory that comes out of people like Frantz Fanon, and then even in America comes out of like Nation of Islam literature. You have this like, and then of course the certain country in the Middle East against the Palestinians. You have like, and I remember like, you remember the score, and like, during the before 2010s, like the mid 2000s in Canada, you had like largely Christo Z-word media, like, Michael Corrin show, whatever,
Oh yeah.
that would make a big deal over the nation in the Middle East apartheid week, if I'm using OPSEC language. So you had that where like, and you had articles in the National Post by people like Jonathan Kay, which, I mean, I talked to Jonathan Kay, he's a good guy. He's gotten more based, but, at the time he was writing about articles, how they were portraying the certain people from that certain nation in the Middle East as like these omnipotent techno supermen, and it's like the poster of like the little Palestinian boy being like yeeted by a rocket from a Apache longbow that was provided to this nation by the Americans. So you had like that nation apartheid week and like that culture war, but that stuff all goes by the wayside because then the younger people, the American political right, and to a lesser extent Canada and Europe, identitarians realize that apart from like the migrant crisis, which becomes domestic in a weird way, rather than like this foreign policy. And of course, the direct consequence of like American foreign policy influence the migrant crisis. You have a situation where, the whole like meme of the left of like, if you went to forums back in the day, like Democratic Underground, you had memes like Al Qaeda and like, oh, the American Taliban is like the Tea Party. So that stuff, after a while, we're like, yeah, unironically, why should we be killing brown people in the Middle East? Why are we like destroying and like destituting our own people through the financial crisis and through American troops coming home in body bags and so forth? Why are we doing this when these people don't really pose an actual geopolitical threat? I mean, they pose a cultural threat in Europe, but in terms of like pure geopolitics, and after a while, it's like, well, if we're gonna have a power that that defies the GAE or whatever you want to call it, like the global empire, the global homogenous liberalism, then it's like, yeah, it's like, then you have the peppy memes, the Talachads. I mean, it's very similar to how certain special forces groups in Russia, how they share peppy memes and all that. Like and of course, like the current anti-you-know-what left, they create this narrative that there's like this big network of the global right that's being funded by Putin and it's being funded by whoever, and like they're all in this together, and like the American alt-right's the extension of like whatever. Like, but reality, it's like they don't realize that these memes memetics have a currency on their own, at least in terms of cultural issues. And so the Taliban using them in their minds is the same as like someone who's in the West using it, who has like in some ways the same enemy. But then of course you can't really tell what is real and what is not, because by the nature of post irony, it's very hard to tell like when the certain leader of the certain group, the Gripers, who the leader of the white race. I try not to comment on drama with him, but like let's say, leader of the white race over there, he talks about the Talachads, and he talks about the Talachads and how they're based, and like, I mean, there's a memetics to that irony there, but at the heart of it, there is like, I wouldn't like, okay, apart from like really weird incel discourse, I wouldn't say the vast majority of people that are younger on the right would be like, yeah, we want to live in Afghanistan the way it is. Like, no, I don't think that's true. But there is something to be said where, in a way, you do see this nascent form of some people have called right-wing third worldism, and some people have used that as a term of derision. There are certain factors, which me and you, Gordon, were talking about. Yeah. Certain people that talk about like how right-wing third worldism is bad, and like there's a very complicated issue there. But I do think that, and of course you could say that certain forms of like Eurasianist thinking has influenced this by being explicitly anti-American and like embracing, these admixtures of East Asiatic despotism politics with sort of more Western concepts. But like that being said, there's like a whole sort of cocktail of different ideas where it's like one links to another, and then all of a sudden you have like Bronze Age perverts saying Talachads. You know what I mean? Like, or like Nick Fuentes or whoever. Oh man, I said his name, but yeah, whatever. So that you do have this weirdo irony going on, but this is in a way a positive direction because it's stepping outside of the largely controlled opposition, neocon infused culture war of the 2000s against quote unquote this marriage of radical Islam and the left, which isn't true anymore. There is, to an extent, the appropriation of radical Islam by the left, and not radical Islam, but rather like hijabi, like GAE liberal neoliberal bullshit version of Islam, of like,
the
but they use this not
Muslims, so to speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Constantine.
Like the Episcopalians of Muslims, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a great term for it, because like it's no longer about a religious issue. It's more of like art hose using their third, fifth, sixth generation Islamic heritage as an identity issue, and then like you know what I mean, like,
and then making out with another art hoe.
Yeah, exactly. And then this is enabled by certain bastardizations of post-colonial theory in academia. But the right wing is also like getting involved. Like there's people, like, I shit you not, there's people, I can swear, you don't guys care.
Yeah.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, so like I shit you not, like there's people that like write in like Arctos and Countercurrents. Like, not that I agree. Well, I mean, just by nature of being on this podcast, you probably can guess I don't agree with a lot of things that Countercurrents has to say. But I have no problems with a lot of those people, actually. Like, I mean, me and Greg Johnson probably differ on many, many things, but, but I'm saying, like, there are people even back in, like, 2015 who've been reading, thinkers like Gramsci and Fanon. And I think that there is a case to be made that there is a right-wing third worldism, although I would say that just by nature of like optics alone, it's kind of insane to go out there and be like, yeah, the Taliban is based. Like, I think that's in a way, like, not just because of optics, but also it like simplifies the issue. But I do think that those images of, I remember like the discourse around it just really quickly, around this time, of those images of those people clambering onto the airplane, that who have essentially betrayed their own people when you really think about it. If you really believe that, I mean, not to say that they're legitimate power, but like, let's face it, if you want to go by who has the monopoly on violence, like the classic, like realist definition of who is in charge, who is that in Afghanistan, Goran and Constantine? Who is that?
Well, the U.S. was.
But who is it now?
I'd say it's the Taliban. Whoever is in charge of them now, whatever Abu Abdul, whatever his name is.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter that they're not recognized as a legitimate government by all working definition. from a realist perspective,
Yeah.
they are the government in Afghanistan. So
Yeah.
so the thing is, when you look at it that way, people are like, oh my God, why would they target people that help the Americans? Why would they not target people that help the Americans? And by the way, and Goran, you know this,
Mhm.
and Constantine, you also, I believe, know this history. Around the 1990s, when people really didn't care about the Middle East, they started to around the mid 90s, but they really, I mean, okay, not the Middle East, sorry, that particular region of the Middle
I
East,
think I know where
people
you're
either
going with this,
cared.
but continue.
Okay, yeah, so during 1990s in Afghanistan, people either cared about Eastern Europe or they cared about Kuwait and Iraq, and like Iran was sort of like in a more subdued position, but Afghanistan was controlled essentially by the Taliban. So what happened was when the Soviets left, do you really think the Soviets were going to help all those translators and people that helped them? No, they left them. All of them got slaughtered. The guy that ran, and he took it like a man, though. The guy that was the puppet government for the Soviets, he was, I believe, hung in the Imperial Palace. So, and his whole family was gunned down, if I recall. So, Afghanistan was essentially more or less controlled by. They
Well, I
didn't
mean,
call
as
themselves. It was
far
the Mujahideen elements, more or less, and yeah,
right, but
and
as
this
far
was
as
like
I know,
pre-Northern Alliance too. So, yeah.
right, but as far as I know, the Russians walked out of Afghanistan, and
Yes. Yes. Yes.
like some interpreters did go back with them.
Oh, some of
But
them, yeah, but a lot
the
of them
family,
didn't.
but the
Yeah.
family you're talking about, yeah, I'm aware of that, right? Because they
Yeah.
lasted for another 2.5 years
That's
before
right.
they
Yeah.
were overrun. So yeah, they didn't last out. But anybody who wanted to leave with the Russians, they literally, like, you can find photos of them, like they walked out of Afghanistan, and like nothing happened. No one attacked them. It was all understood.
Really, eh?
Yeah,
But I know a
absolutely.
lot of translators were killed that stayed there. Um, so
Yes,
I
because
could be wrong.
I'm sure according to the people that were fighting against the government, is like, well, you should have left. Obviously, you thought you would last,
Yeah, I
and
think you know what it was, Goran. I think it was because I was reading this retrospective of the years leading up to 9/11. That was from Time Magazine, so that's probably why. It's probably why I
no,
was
I'm
misinformed.
just mentioning that there's an exception. But I think the other reason, like, I think the main reason why, uh, beyond the irony, there's an appeal to, like, young right wing men and men in general,
Yeah.
for third world.
Yeah, and let me just say, like right off the bat, I'm not saying that it's a good thing that the Taliban yeeted a bunch of helpers of America, but you have to realize that in terms of realpolitik, they view them as traitors to their people.
Of
And
course,
so like that's the same that we would jail people here who are like even nowadays there's people.
January 6th.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's people that well, even in Canada, there's people that are detained in Canadian custody who are from Russia now. I mean, I don't know if the
Yeah.
one guy released some of them, but I knew he had this petty thing where he's like, "You're not going to go back to Russia right now." It's like, so it's the same deal. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
no shock that the Taliban,
if you
yeah,
want the obvious example, you can look at France after World War II when they shaved the women's heads and I think
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
executed the
yeah.
men or
yeah.
imprisoned them or whichever one.
I believe they publicly executed some officers from Vichy France, if I recall, too. So
Yes, they did. They
yeah,
did.
yeah.
And even playwrights.
Oh, that's
I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
always I always forget his name. I think it starts with a B. So there was this French playwright, um, who was, uh, sympathetic to the Nazis. He was hung,
Hmm.
and maybe some of our listeners know who I'm talking about. But he's famous for, after the war, where he said, "I see a new fascism rising from the east, border
Whoa!
wait, borderless and red." He was referring to Stalin.
I mean, that you could. I don't know if you could make that. Yeah, maybe. I
He
mean,
was
there's some.
undermining democracy.
Yeah, yeah. That's by definition is fascist. So that's
Yeah,
yeah.
borderless and red. But
Which
I
is
think
another
that,
thing too about Afghanistan is that. Oh, but sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off.
no, I was just going to say, I think, obviously one of the main appeals, right, about, third world right wingism is, just
Islamoduganism, you mean?
yeah, is
Yeah.
just the level of respect for the masculine. just
Yeah.
for the concept of it, right?
But then again, like I understand like certain white nationalists why they would get like really pissed off about that, because they're like, well, that means you have to like go to these like third world people instead of like European people descendant to like look for your masculinity. And then
But
of
that's a
course this is
false.
why
But
white nationalists hate Bronze Age privilege.
that's a false choice. That's
Yeah,
just an
yeah.
argumentative state of mind. That's a false choice. None of the groypers are seriously thinking like, we gotta get our women to wear veils. No, nobody seriously
No.
thinks that. It's just
Although I would like an Afghani GS. A lot of them are quite beautiful. But anyway,
yeah.
no, I'm kidding. I'm
It's
kidding.
just
No, maybe, well, but maybe unless.
it's just a broad appeal because
Yeah.
the masculine is so demonized in the West. It's obvious that when they see this, and of course, one of the reasons that they like irony, right, is because the left is so hyper aware of their friend enemy distinction.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That this is what leads them to bypass the irony. Right.
Yeah.
So they will amplify that element within them that does wish the masculine would be more respected in the West. And then they'll turn that into that, if we don't stop them, they'll become the white Taliban here. It's just
they'll become like Handmaid's Tale, and they'll start like
yeah.
murdering, XYZ trans people. Like, they'll start
So when
like
they do a Pepe meme about about the Taliban, for them that's proof. But
that's radicalization.
It basically arises. It just arises out of their. It just arises out of their hyper friend enemy distinction.
Yeah.
Which is funny because if you actually talk to a lib, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a lib, and you can tell if you talk about friend enemy distinction in a serious way, they get uncomfortable. But they don't actually, at that moment, they actually don't understand. They don't understand that I'm trying to say that's you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But so as soon as you become hyper aware of friend enemy distinctions, right, then their cackles go up. Right.
It's sort of like against, it's like the celebration parallax. It's like, by the way, Constantine, you're recording. This is all good?
Yep. We're on.
OBS, is that what you use?
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of like okay, I'm not making any I'm not making any anti you know what statement out of this. I'm just saying this is fact.
No, we love
that certain nation. No, but I got up sick. No, but that certain nation in the Middle East. It's kind of like if you have a critique of it from the left wing perspective. I know that certain elements, for example, in the Democratic Party, they'll kind of like look at AOC, or they'll look at who's that other one that's part of like the five horsewomen of the apocalypse?
The Muslim one, I think it's
Omar. But then there's also the Rashida,
like Talib or something.
Yeah. They'll look at them that are like very harsh critics of this certain actions against Muslims that this nation in the Middle East commits to. And they'll be like, we have to kayfabe that, but still they'll allow like some form of it because it's coming from this like left-wing post-colonial perspective. And given that this nation is pretty much an extension of the West, but they'll use it as like, well, that's like a capitalist imperialism, blah, blah, blah. And they're harming like by POC, Muslims of color, right? So,
well, I think it was Chomsky that tried to claim, this wonderful little nation was actually a puppet of the Americans rather than the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but there's another reason. There's another reason why they do it, right? Because it's loosely associated. That criticism from the left is loosely associated with the concept.
Yes.
That the Israelis are actually they're white.
Right. Yeah.
And they're bad because they're white. And
yeah.
I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed by people of that ethnic group who get really upset by it, and they don't realize like this is actually like
you're coded as white anyways by most.
Well, it's not just that. You can use it like it's not an argument that can stick for them being Jewish. Right. It sticks for them being white, and then you can extrapolate that from there and say, well, I don't know
They're a
what we're going to do
colonial
about
white
Israel,
supremacist
but
power
in
against,
America and Western Europe, here's what we can do to battle white colonialism.
even
So
though
it's
like are Sephardics the majority of Israel? No, they're
no,
like,
no.
but they're a huge contingent. Like,
They are
even,
now, but it's still
yeah,
essentially Ashkenazi.
yeah, but a lot of them still kind of look similar to the Muslims. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
Ashkenazis have like 50 to 60% Semitic DNA, right?
Look,
yeah,
So
I
yeah,
mean, I can speak only from personal experience, but I can tell you every Palestinian and Syrian I have met have been of a fairer skin tone than our good friends in Israel.
yeah. Well, a lot of them share Mediterranean DNA, if I recall. Um,
yeah,
but the point being is that I think it's in the framework of that post-colonial mindset, whereas the right-wing critique of the same nation is, of course, evil, Austrian painter, and can never be spoken of. But that's just like one example. So when it comes to Islam, though, when it comes to the other side of that is the celebration side, whereas the left can code switch and embrace Islamic some like bullshit like bastardization of like,
yeah.
3 cups of tea version of Islam, but that's only in Islam as an identity rather than a religious doctrine. But then when the right wing is now saying, well, maybe we shouldn't, like, okay, yeah, from a Christian perspective, Islam is reliant upon the Aryan heresy, blah blah blah. But like, really, these people, they don't pose. I mean, if in Europe it's different, but like, they really don't pose a substantial threat to the right wing in North America, at least. But then as soon as you say that, then it becomes this like, yep, see all those Al Qaeda memes, all those what do they call the convoy people, the Tala truckers? There is a word for it.
I know
The
what you mean, but I forget the name.
The Timmy's band or so. They had like some kind of like equating the truckers with radical Islam. Like, so then that becomes the meme. But then when it comes to these complex geopolitical issues, again, even with the other nation in the Middle East, like it become like, okay, personally, we've discussed this. Like, I mean, this whole like obsession over, well, I'll say no more. No, I'll just kayfabe. But you know what I mean? Like the whole like either obsession with this sort of like anti-Islam is a much older form of right-wing thought in North America, and it's like but then that doesn't really serve us, because really the people that are deploying this narrative of the clash of civilizations against Islam particularly, I mean, these people, to put it very lightly, do not have the interests of the average frog poster in mind, put it that way. So
Mm.
it becomes, like you were saying, this sort of nascent right-wing third world thought becomes a very romanticized option, for a variety of reasons. And it's not that we, again, don't want, like, maybe some like weirdos, but like the majority of people probably don't like want to put women in veils. But then that's another thing. Like, even today, I saw on the anniversary, um, like leftists attacking other leftists because some were saying that finally the evil capitalist white supremacist colonial regime of America got out of Islam, got out of the business of Muslims in Afghanistan. Then other leftoids are like, what about the women who can't go to school now? And it's like, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen this. It's really amazing. It's like, then you had that poster. Remember that poster that got like the photo of the poster that got like 3, 4, 500,000 likes, where it's like, this is Afghanistan now. And it's like the guy like ripping down this fashion advertisement of like this woman in a dress.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes,
here,
I
this
remember.
symbolizes. It's sort of like Reddit brain, like profundity, like humans of like subhumans of New York or other like Redditisms. Like it's like even too like it's too gratuitous and monkey brain for even Norwoods. It's sort of like pure soy jack, like soy egalitarian. They're erasing. Look, it's a symbol of them erasing women. It's like, fuck off. Like, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad that degenerate Phil went to, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Well, like, it's like, if it means owning the libs of that poster of the fashion model going down, then good. I'm glad.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Oh my God, it symbolizes the erasure of women. And
they literally painted it over with white. It's like, wow, that looks better already.
Trump,
just to
tropical
briefly,
excellence.
return to Robert Spencer.
Okay, yeah.
In hindsight, right? In hindsight, what he's trying to do is promulgate.
Well, was he a Muslim or something? He was like an ex-Muslim, or he was.
I
He
don't
has a
know.
story there. Yeah.
He does.
was-
Now, I remember
yeah.
him giving one lecture, and you can tell that he's very invested in creating a coalition between Christians and Jews. And so he gave this lecture about the way Christians and Jews were treated in Spain. Now,
Oh yeah.
he focused on, like, I'm not saying it was ever great or it was deserved or the Spanish were not correct in kicking them out. They were. I'm just saying that he focused on the worst years. He did mention that the Christians were like absolute bottom tier, then the Jews, but then there were reprisals if the Jews got out of hand. In one town, 5,000 were slaughtered. I get it. I get it. They were in charge. They conquered that land, and it's ironic.
Yeah, but who teamed up with the Muslims during the Third Crusade?
Well, I mean, they also helped.
Okay, go ahead.
It's ironic, right? Because they helped them invade Spain in the first place, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so it's ironic that happens. Now, so he had this kind of, limited picture of Spanish history, but the whole point of it was to continue the promulgation of the narrative that was established by Bush Jr., right?
Yes.
And you can tell, like, I think peak was like 2010. Obama was elected.
Yeah, and they were like, Obama's a Muslim. Remember that one?
Right.
Yeah.
But the whole point was we need to keep hostilities towards Muslims as high as possible, right? And in a way, Robert Spencer represents like a narrative that was already dying out, and he doesn't appreciate that. In a sense, Obama getting elected is how they got libs not to pay attention to the Middle East. It was gradual. And then we had a little, mini economic collapse in 2008. But what I'm saying is Obama getting elected, little name Hussein, in a sense already meant that narrative was no longer necessary, right?
Yeah.
But you have certain countries that were really invested in America staying in Central Asia and the Middle East for a lot longer. And those two countries primarily are Israel and the United Kingdom, right?
Also,
you
remember a technical note. I did look into Robert Spencer, just as you were saying. His background is he's from one of those Lebanese mixed Orthodox Byzantine Catholic families.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
How did he get a name like Spencer?
I probably an anglicization if I had to guess, but I don't know.
Probably. Like I said, Harry Spencer versus Hairdo Spencer.
But yeah, I think it's kind of over. I love that clip of Richard Spencer where he's like, I think it's kind of over. Like I could use that in so many different contexts. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say it was already like a narrative that wasn't necessary anymore. And I think maybe a large reason why he was doing all these tours, and he did a tour with I think a woman named Gilan, or I forget her name. She was Jewish. She was American Israeli, and like I think the whole reason for that is
I remember those tours. A lot of them went to Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. So Benjamin Netanyahu, I think, was president at the time, and he had high hopes for Romney getting elected because he wanted Iran dealt with.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Right.
Oh, was that when he had the bomb in the UN? He had the bomb threat. Remember?
Yeah. I mean, he's been doing that for a long time.
It was hilarious. Yeah.
I'm just saying that
BB's final warning.
I think that was the whole point, right?
Yeah.
And Romney didn't get elected, and he was so disappointed. That's why he threw all his backing towards Trump.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But Trump hates Romney, though. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because basically, Romney was entrusted to deliver the rhetoric that Trump did 4 years later, and we've discussed on the show before, the guy that got Benjamin Netanyahu elected was Finkelstein, and Finkelstein also got Netanyahu elected, and Orban, actually.
Mm.
But he also was the advisor for Trump's campaign, right?
Oh, wow.
So when Trump, said Romney choked, what he means is in 2012, Romney would not say what he said. Now, of course, Romney has been around for so long, he knows that would have been political suicide.
Yeah.
And he would not do it. He knew that Benjamin Netanyahu wouldn't care anymore after he ruined his political career. So you could say Romney played it smart.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, just to finish up with this Robert Spencer, is that it was a argumentation, as you say, it was already old at its time.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, leftists really love Islam. Well, they don't love Islam. They hate the West.
they want to use Islam as a cum rag. That's let's face it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry being vulgar, but that's the truth. Oh, man. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Constantine.
Well, I think
Hello.
yes, I am still here. Don't worry, we have not lost connection. That harkens back to the early days of the war report. Oh boy, those were very much fun.
Oh, man.
Yeah, my internet has never been good. It's much better than it was. Those were the hamster wheel days, where at the slightly more advanced hamster wheel. But now that we've beaten the Afghanistan horse to death, and generally the Islam horse to death, and I think we covered a lot of good ground there.
Maybe we should ask ourselves, okay, what do we think is the future of America in Afghanistan?
Ooh, interesting.
That's a good question.
Before we leave it as a subject.
Well, I suppose I'll let you two go first, and then I'll round it out.
Gio, do you want to go?
Yeah, I think that. Oh, that's interesting. I think that obviously on the domestic front, there's probably no tolerance for another ground war like there was. Mm-hmm. There may be a limited tolerance for some kind of women and trans people are getting yeeted, so we have to send drones like Obama, or some kind of subversive thing like that. But I think that it's hard to say, because the sort of architects of a lot of sort of the new American century regime, like Zbigniew Brzezinski, they sort of outlined that it was crucially important. It was vital that Anglo-American interests control that portion of the Middle East to prevent the Chi-Coms from building the pipeline, and that's why essentially they supported the Northern Alliance, right? The Northern Alliance, I think, is pretty much no more, if I recall. I think they have no real power. They were sort of the last real gasp of them was in the 2000s. But then I know a lot of weird stuff happened with them. I know a lot of people defected to Afghan, or the the Taliban ended up killing a lot of their leaders. I know that also certain scandals, the Abu Ghraib prison scandal, there was some funny business behind the scenes, and that really soured relations between the West and whatever groups that were there. But yeah, I think that they think they have to control it. There are certain factions of neocons who are probably still bitter about Afghanistan, but I don't really see the political will being there. I mean, I could be wrong, and it could just be I don't know if even the whole we have to go after Iran thing is still there. It could be, maybe, there's certain ancient neocons that are probably yo, we have to go after Iran still. I think that all the energy and focus has either been inward with domestic culture war politics, and of course the biosecurity politics of the past 2 or 3 years that is fading. Hopefully it's gone. Hopefully it won't come back in the winter. But of course, now that things are again 1990s revivalism focused on the Eastern Europe instead of the Middle East, even though that's kind of fading as well for obvious reasons. It's very interesting. It's very murky what they're going to do with Afghanistan, because I know that the Taliban, they're starting to cut deals with corporations and with the Chinese, and They're
Yeah.
not exactly incompetent, put it that way.
Well, the Chinese have had something like they far and away lead every
Yeah.
country that's had meetings with them in the last year, and they've had like 117 meetings.
Yeah, the Chinese, they don't give a fuck about, oh my God, Afghani girls can't go to school anymore. Like, who cares? You know, like, I don't mean to be that callous, but the Chinese really do not care about that.
I
They
mean,
really
they're
don't.
our
Yeah.
typical, I believe you'd call them Oriental merchants.
Yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, and the funny thing is, though, that if they really wanted to, I mean, the past 20 years has been such a gong show for America and Britain and the Anglos in Afghanistan that the whole goal of like, oh, well, we have to do this to prevent the pipeline being built from China, like they lost. I mean, if the Chinese are truly cutting like serious deals with the Afghanis, the Taliban, it's like, well, that's sort of like 1990s to 2000s American foreign policy school. Like that's pretty much on their last legs. I mean, they've either directed all of their attention to Eastern Europe, or they're like, they really don't care anymore, or they don't have enough power, or like certain ancestral hatreds, inhabiting people like Victoria Nuland force them to take a backseat to what's happening in Eastern Europe. So, yeah.
yeah, I mean, so recently, might have been yesterday, there was a report that the U.S. is in the process of doing drills with several Central Asian countries, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. I don't know if Uzbekistan was in that mix, but they have, they refuse to leave this area. Now, some of these countries, of course, during the 20 years that they were there, either outright denied the Americans for setting up a base, or they let them have one and then they kicked them out. Well before 2014.
Why? Because do you think that like they want like Brandon wants fight? They want to fight the Taliban to every last Uzbeki. Is that what they want to do? Like,
no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
The main problem is they don't have a government in place in Afghanistan that is good for their interests, right? So on the one hand, like, think about it like this, right? Like if Afghanistan makes their society more prosperous, eventually that will raise the living standards of women, and eventually, if things really take off, those women will get very hypergamous and they'll be more like Western women. But first it involves that the standard of living first has to increase.
Yeah, like even in Saudi Arabia, women have like a bit more rights now than they did even 10 years ago. So,
right. So I'm not saying there's going to be like, Afghani art hose everywhere.
That's there won't be like the boomer meme of like, this was women in the 70s in Iran during the Shah. They look like supermodels. Yeah, it's like before Ayatollah Khomeini. Yeah.
So, for instance, I think it can be fairly well stated that to varying degrees, the growth of a city and financial prosperity breeds liberalism to some degree, right? And so if the U.S. really wants those things to happen for Afghanistan, and they're really being altruistic about it, and it's not their interests, right? Then the 9 million that they hold, that they refuse to give to the Taliban because they consider it illegitimate. And Afghanis are starving right now. Like, if they really wanted like Afghanistan to change, well, as long as they start to prosper, those women's lives that they're so concerned about will change. It will. Prosperity, no question, will change. Even if those women go from, let's say, something the way women are in Afghanistan now to something like, I don't know, maybe the way women are treated, let's say, in Egypt or Syria or Turkey. Like, that would be, I mean, if they're really altruistic and serious, that would be an upgrade. But the problem is, of course, it has nothing to do with that, right? They don't want China to go in there. It's strictly about, a competitor nation taking advantage of not only a gateway, a transit rather, for oil and gas, but precious minerals. Now, China already has a lot, but there's a lot of cobalt in Afghanistan. So I think, like, I don't think going forward, I don't think that the U.S. is done with them. I think they're very resentful that they had to leave.
Yeah.
I think they're going to switch strategies. Do not be surprised if they try to create a conflict between Afghanis and Tajiks or Kyrgyz who have minorities within Afghanistan.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
not be
then
surprised if
yeah.
they they'll do a more hands-off thing, kind of like Obama during like the Obama years and Yemen. We're
Or
doing
even like Reagan and the Soviets in Afghanistan with
right, but
Mujahideen,
I think
yeah.
I'm speaking more about like drone strikes.
Okay, yeah, I know what you, yeah, yeah.
That's why I brought up Yemen under the Obama administration. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
The Saudis literally did them a favor. It's like, guys, we're getting too much heat droning all these civilians. Can't you get in and fight?
Yeah, yeah. Why like that? I never understood that. Why do the Saudis hate Yemen so much? Is it just over oil or yeah?
Well, I mean,
The Iranians are working with the various Shiite group.
Yemenis.
Yeah, just stroking out a little, but the Iranians are working with various Shiite groups. So they do fear another Iranian proxy on their border that can fire missiles into their territory, which we've seen throughout the course of this
Oh,
war.
yeah.
also it's its geolocation is so crucial because it's Saudi Arabia has ports in the Persian Gulf and in the Red Sea, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
But that turn that goes from the Indian Ocean into the Red Sea, they don't have anything there. So it's strictly between Somalia and Yemen. And I think they don't want that area disturbed. They don't want that area to have any kind of negative foreign influence. And of course, the Yemenis that are fighting right now against the Saudis, they're Shia. They're not Sunni.
Are there actual like Saudi troops getting like involved too?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
whoa, you don't hear about this stuff in the West that there's like actual troop movements.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. Like
We're
it's
South Front nerds.
Oh
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
since 2018.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like it's like that's sort of like part of the geopolitical strategy. I guess like the Saudis are sort of like on the one hand, the Saudis are sort of like, yeah, like America second greatest ally, but at the same time, they're like starting to cut deals. Like I knew they met with Lavrov, so I wonder if like
Yeah.
the Saudis are trying to like play them from both sides. Also, like I know that they're starting to like stir shit in Syria because they're trying to. Are they still trying to like go the Russians away from the front towards like helping their brothers in Syria, or is that like not a viable option anymore?
I
Huh.
honestly think there are some elements within the Saudi elites that are funding them, but I think most of
Yeah.
the money is actually coming from America, Qatar, probably Israel.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's mostly the Saudis. The Saudis have their hands full in Yemen.
No, I don't mean the Saudis, but I mean like the sort of the GAE in general. Are they like trying to stir stuff in?
Oh yeah. The
Yeah.
GAE is very, very, very involved in Syria.
Yeah, but then of
I mean,
course.
they literally steal their
Yeah.
oil and
Yeah.
their wheat.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Like
literally take it. I was talking to the same lib friend before, and he literally said to me, "Democracy is not perfect, but it has self-correcting measures built in." So it's an argument that it's eventually going to be flawless. Like that stupid Rousseauian idea about the perfectibility of man, therefore the perfectibility of
of
governance and
government. Yeah, you
society.
got that
Yeah,
from Plato. Yeah.
it's so ridiculous. Like this guy, like I'm thinking like do you know like America like is illegally in Syria and they literally steal 80% of Syria's oil. Like just last week there was a photo of 113 tankers driving from Syria over the border into Iraq. Remember when America stopped all these boats from delivering masks when the pandemic broke out? Like they did that. They just literally did that.
Yeah.
And then the most recent one was there was an Iranian oil tanker, and the Americans goaded the Greeks into stopping the oil tanker and the Americans started taking the oil out of the oil tanker. In retaliation, the Iranians took 2 Greek ships in Iran, in the Persian Gulf, and said, if you ever want to see these again, you stop. This event went to the courts in Greece. The courts that are very pro EU, by the way, voted in favor of Iran. And so now America actually has to deliver the oil back into the ship. The ship has to be let go. And only then can Greece, take its 2 ships back. We've hypothesized on this show, like, when things start to go really shit, like, will America increase its piracy or not? Like,
maybe. Yeah.
maybe.
Who knows? Yeah.
This is not a good start, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but then also the Russians, they have auxiliaries to deal with that. I mean, they'll just send. I imagine if things really cook up, they'll just send the Wagner group there to be like, okay, you guys were there in 2016. I know you're technically not part of the military, but that's the way they work. That's the cheeky little, like, they're like the Wagner group. From my understanding, they're kind of like Russia's own version of like executive outcomes, where they're not like they're kind of sort of not a part of like the South African or the Rhodesian government, but they're like kind of are, because a lot of those guys are like So I know the Wagner group, they were in Mali recently.
Yes, the French have left and Wagner has gone in.
Yeah, good. I mean, sorry. No, I mean, I think it's a shame that the French left to Africa. I think like they were doing some good things there. I mean, they did a lot of bad, terrible things to those people, but I think that like in some ways, like the romanticism over French colonialism is kind of like, you know what I mean? It had a different flavor to it than the Anglos or other European powers. The French just did things differently, I guess. And I think it's a shame that the Americans forced them to get kicked out of both Africa and Indochina. Oh, they don't call it Indochina anymore, so that's racist.
After
what do they call it?
II,
East Asia.
This town only has room for one empire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's terrible. The French, they did, like, for example, if you were Algerian, like, you technically were, I mean, you didn't have the same amount of rights, but like you technically were a French citizen. But then of course, like largely American organizations, doing things like funding the Viet Minh and then radicalizing the students in France and like, all that crap. I don't have to repeat that one editor's cut of Apocalypse Now to like to the argument, but so the Russians, they'll basically just set in Wagner, I think. I mean, they can't be burdened with the real military might anymore like they were in 2016. I think like my feeling is that the Russians are terrified that they might actually end up doming an American advisor. I mean, maybe not. I could be wrong about this.
Oh, I think they've killed several American advisors just in Ukraine.
No, in Ukraine, but that's different. I think like if they were
I think they did it when they entered the war in Syria. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But I think nowadays, I mean, so really you think they don't care about that anymore? They probably just like, well, I guess if it happens.
Well, I think they think like we're gonna get you back, and often
they do.
If
it dies, it dies. Yeah.
If it dies, it dies.
Yeah.
But Constantine, what do you think?
So just quickly,
what do you think, Constantine? Do you think that the Russians?
What's the future for Afghanistan? You think?
So as for
Constantine, go ahead. Yeah.
As for Afghanistan, and I didn't stop you because I was very compelled by the conversation. So I would have said something had I thought it was dragging on, but with you two, it never could. But with that being said, Afghanistan, as I've previously discussed, and with my bold prediction a couple episodes ago about 2032 really being checkmated the American Empire, which I still more or less stand by for the time being, we're going to have to pick or I should say the Empire is going to have to pick its military engagements very carefully. Now, there's a few warring factions in the Empire, so to speak. So, you have the careerists in the Pentagon, and I'm not talking about people like the Milley who want to go up there and turn it into an LGBTQ CIA fest where they hoist up the rainbow flag. I'm not saying that the Pentagon is
global gay disco, to quoting Michael Jones.
Wiser words have never been spoken. But figureheads like him aside, again, you have people in the Pentagon who probably do have more liberal tendencies, but aren't going to do that for the sake of pragmatism. a lot of them are spurned about Afghanistan. A lot of them are spurned about having sunk 20 years into a war and lost it. And a lot of them, and
Yeah.
you especially get into the lower and mid-level officers, and especially the guys who are on the ground, a lot of them blame the Iranians for it and Iranian interference in Afghanistan. Now, how true that is, I don't know, but that could be used to drum something against the Iranians if need be. I think also with that, you did, GSP, mention the funding of, or at least the joint drills and the further entrenchment into these Central Asian former Soviet republics. And as we've discussed previously on the show, including last episode, the potential for a flare up in Kazakhstan, as well as the failed color revolution at the beginning of this year. So they do not want to take their foot out of Central Asia. Maybe Afghanistan is off the
Right.
table, but they want that foothold there, whether it be due to the Chinese issue, the Russian issue, the Iranians. I mean, again, it's the perfect area if you'd want to confront all three. So, as for Afghanistan, the most we're ever going to do there again is just a series of drone strikes and maybe some internal sabotage and maybe some diplomatic tricks to undermine any agreements that the Taliban government might make with Chinese. However, and I think this is less likely, but it could be a card they might pull if they really have to, foment the ethnic and religious tensions between the Iranians and the Afghans in hopes of trying to get them, even if not like a full scale war, but trying to get them to
Yeah.
take pot shots at each other. So,
I was gonna ask you because like the Afghanis, they never actually really got along with the Persians. I mean, didn't
No.
the Persians tried to conquer them hundreds, thousands of years ago? But like like they don't have the same ethnic admixture, if I recall. They
no.
very
And
much, yeah,
Well, the Taliban did fight with Persian militias on the border, like
against Iraq.
yeah, well,
no, Iran.
the
Oh,
Tajiks are just Persians by a different name. So that's where, and
yeah,
you go back to the
okay, yeah.
90s, Iran was actually a big supporter of the Northern Alliance because it was mostly Tajik. And
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
so,
But do you like what about the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s? What did the Afghanistan, did that factor into anything or?
well, in the 80s,
I don't,
Afghanistan was under the boot of the Soviet Union, so they were a bit
yeah,
preoccupied
Yeah.
with those sort of
yeah.
things. But uh, when it comes to the situation in Afghanistan, I don't think America is ever going to touch it again, except beyond a few drones and missiles we send into the country to knock out X, Y, or Z Taliban, or I should say Al Qaeda leader, or whoever. That's, maybe a few strikes on ISIS K. We still never figured out what that K stands for. Although I have my
Man,
speculations.
that's ancient history now.
Yeah, I'm sure you all remember fondly ISIS K and their little shenanigans in Afghanistan.
I
ISIS
totally
Special
forgot
K.
about them.
I didn't know they released an album after Wavering Radiant. Oh, sorry, that different ISIS. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the band ISIS Special K.
um,
Wavering Radiant is honestly like, okay, I'm a sucker for Panopticon, but Wavering Radiant, I think if you had to like end on a high note, that was a pretty good high note. Anyways, what was there? This is a stupid question, but like, what was Iran's disposition during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars? Were they like
Fighting
behind the
Saddam.
scenes supporting? Yeah, of
but
course. So they still had that hatred of the
yeah,
Iraq.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
they look at the Taliban as Sunnis that are persecuting Shia in
Oh,
Afghanistan.
okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, and even if like the Tajiks are technically Sunni, like there's that ethnic camaraderie that's there. So
Yeah.
insofar as that, and then I think it's like the Hazara are the Shia Muslims that exist
Yeah,
within
yeah.
Afghanistan. So they pretty much support coalitions of the minority to undermine the dominant Pashtuns who make up still the majority of the Taliban. Although with
Yeah.
the Taliban
Yeah.
2.0, they have diversified. They've embraced the what is it, the diversity, equity, and inclusion measures, and let
Oh
some
God.
Pashtuns in there in order to try to build a broader coalition in the country.
You know they went against emos back in the day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were eating them. Yeah, Count Dankula has a video on them. They should have got more of them. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Now what did they use
it's
for that?
humor.
Rooftops, some rope, some lead and
I think
gunpowder.
some of them disappeared. Some of them did get rooftopped, if I recall.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, Count Dankula. I'm kidding. I don't have anything. Well, I mean, the emos did normalize a lot of. That's another topic for another podcast. No. So yeah. So I think like So the Iranians, they didn't keep up with the whole like my enemy of my enemy is my friend during the Iraq War. I guess they're still like, well, America, they basically gave Saddam weapons and chemical munitions to gas, troops on the front line and the Kurds. Well, not that they care about the Kurds, but like, yeah, they still have that resentment over the Iran-Iraq war, right? Like
Yeah,
they,
well,
yeah,
there was actually an interesting thing when it came to the Iraq War, and this is a point that was made by people who were certainly not neocons, but had that touch of hawkishness that just came with sort of American patriotism at the time.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they were saying that, well, the Iraq War is actually immensely beneficial for the Iranians, which I do agree with that assessment. I mean, but
Really?
once you get in there, you knock that off. You got a country that's two-thirds Shia, and you can set up all these militias and all these groups that are going to naturally gravitate towards the Iranians just because of religious solidarity and in the face of the American
Yeah.
empire being at your doorstep. I can't
Well,
remember
and
the name.
Iran was a much stronger country after Iraq was basically destroyed by the
Oh,
Americans,
yes.
obviously.
And I can't remember
Yeah.
the name of who he was, but he recently, him and his coalition won in the legislative elections a pretty large seat of the Iraqi legislature. But he was one of these relatively pro-Iranian Shia militia leaders. So if you look at what they did in Iraq, of course, that is still a thorn in the side with the residual American presence and the Sunni extremism they've stirred up, and even to some extent the Kurdish nationalism they stirred up. But overall, you look at the situation of Iraq, just by demographics alone, it was favorable for the Iranians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd imagine a lot of those Shias, they escaped back to Iran when the heavy conflict was around like 2007 to 2010. I'd imagine like a lot of them, like they didn't stick around. Like I know that Iraq in particular was like this huge drain of radical Islamists in the area in terms of like the
Well, there
Americans
were
were,
all those mosques that were bombed. I
yeah,
remember, like,
yeah,
you would have over 100 people dead. Like,
that's right. Yeah. And that would like,
and
yeah.
it wasn't just 2 or 3 times. I mean, they even attacked um, an embassy belonging to one of the EU countries.
Oh yeah,
And
that's right. Yeah.
like, I'll say this: Frontline, when it was a much better organization, uh,
Not like
you know,
now when they're interviewing Julie Loth about how fascistic Putin is. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But their series, because in a way, America had to be, for whatever reasons, you can say it's a division uh, between two ideas of how to deal with the Middle East. And, Frontline, PBS, let's say NPR, were of the opinion that going into Iraq was a big mistake.
yeah, Democracy Now. Yeah,
Uh, have, generally speaking, a more honest and critical evaluation. But the criticism is more implicit. But they are stalwart in their neutral position on America's stance and involvement in Iraq. So much so that it comes off as a legitimate criticism, right?
right.
Now, this kind of thing is actually, it's very sophisticated, and it, like, sometimes it's called narrative jamming, right? So, like, for instance, like Russia with RT did this also very well.
Oh yeah, they had a ton of like leftoids, like, but of that particular like quasi like Marxist class
Like
analysis
who's the
people.
one former British legislator that has a show on RT now?
George
Oh,
Galloway.
Yeah,
Galloway?
yeah, like
Yeah,
people
yeah.
like him.
Yeah, or
Right, but
like
the
even
whole point.
Tom Hartman was more of like a standard lefty, but like people like him, Abby Martin, like the anti-colonialist, like wearing the what's the Palestinian shawl thing called, the scarf?
Oh,
I
I
can never
forget.
remember the name.
The start with an H.
Something like that.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know what I'm talking about.
I know.
Yeah,
I have an
yeah.
interesting story about one of those that I don't think I can tell on air just because it involves somebody I actually know in person.
Uh,
But they had those type of leftoids on that were like part of like the anti-war left or the remnants of it after like 1999. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
but what you let happen, right? If America's the leader, and what America does eventually emanates outward,
Yeah.
is America establishes the narrative, right? And you
Right.
accept the narrative, and then you look for flaws here and there in the narrative. So it looks like you're going along, but you're developing a very subtle form of criticism, right? And I like what Joaquin Flores calls this as narrative jamming, right?
Yeah.
Now, to some people, they'll say, "Oh, they're all on the same side. They're all on the same side," right? And I
Right.
can understand why people would think that, but actually, they're not. And this is why people, I think, never understood how frustrated Western countries were with RT, right? And why they
Right.
could not wait to ban it. It's because of this narrative jamming that they constantly did. Kind of like, well, you said you did this, but actually you did that. And this consistently over and over and over again
Yeah.
without wandering too far outside the lanes of this narrative is actually a more subtle and more effective criticism, right? And I think there's just a lot of people who just don't see this. They just
Well,
don't
it's
get
like
it.
it's okay. Like that's a great point because if you look at the landscape in the Anglosphere, I mean, in Britain, you have the establishment left who have like viciously canceled like the old guard of like the 2000s, like Jeremy Corbyn,
Yeah.
Galloway. Like they want people like the Muslim. No, she's like Arab, not Arab even. She's like that one Siskin. What's her name? Saka.
Amy
Oh
Siskin, is that who you're trying to think of? That name
no, not
sounds
Amy
no.
Siskin. The British, the Indian
Oh,
woman.
that doesn't narrow it down.
Sakara. The one that said, "I'm a Marxist, you idiot." You know that one?
Oh, that one. That
Mm,
one.
Yeah, they want those people. They want the Owen Jones people. They want the Guardian people, the Gurian people, the Guardian people. They don't want like the old guard of like Galloway or like people who have appeared in Russia today. In the States, it's very similar to how like, well, I might as well just say the word, like the anti you know who people, how they like viciously go after like Gray Mirror, to BB, Greenwald,
yeah.
even like lower people like who don't like, for example, like I mean, I have no like relation to him or whatever, but like people like Caleb Maupin, who I think is just like, I mean, a lot of people treat him like a clown figure, or like, better example, like yeah, Caleb Maupin, like has cells, like the whole like patriotic socialism people, like they look at like they viciously go after, like there's like whole accounts like dedicated to going after like Glenn Greenwald or Mike
Yeah.
Tracy or Caleb Mop. Like they're like,
Paul Tracy. Yeah.
yeah, Paul Tracy. Yeah, Mike Tracy.
I mean,
They're
I said, sorry, I didn't mean to say Paul, not,
yeah, you
not
just
the
like
car
Paul Tracy.
driver.
No, but there's like whole accounts that would go after like Haas or
Yeah.
like really like clownish figures, like others ones, like you know what I mean. Like they'll, not to say that Caleb Maupin's a clown. I'm not saying that. I don't mean to insult the man. I'm just saying like the way he's treated by most people, even like in his circles. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
there are whole people that just like they have the same like triple arrows, like the same
Hmm.
like emotive yet like NPR voice way of tweeting. They're like they want to be like we're like a report and like we're like tracker accounts, right? Like they'll like be linked to some glowy like funded or like NGO anti-hate blah blah blah. Like they go after those type of people more viciously than they'll go after even like quote unquote far right Austrian painter people. Like
Right,
they
right.
hate
Because
like,
one of them is dismissed outright. The other one
yeah,
falls under the auspices of valuable criticism.
and traitor,
Criticism.
yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, of course.
Who's the
Right.
other guy? The Ames guy, Mark Ames. Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah,
another one. Like
yeah.
these are people like that work or around Gray Mirror. They hate BreadTube. They hate like the blue yellow stands. They are, and like let's face it, maybe some of them probably are getting money somewhere from certain people in the
Oh
Kremlin.
yeah.
But I wouldn't listen. Okay, my former well, he didn't consider me a co-host, but my former co-host would say that all these people, including Red Scare, they're being funded by the Kremlin. Maybe they are. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
Dasha and Anna, they're getting money from the Kremlin. I don't know, but like it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility of certain people like Galloway who actually like work directly for Russia today, that they are probably getting Kremlin money. But that's not to say that their analysis is wrong or anything. I'm just saying that
Yeah,
I'm not blind to the fact that these people, they probably are not our friends on the political right, and they probably, for as much
again,
as
their friend enemy distinction is so hyper right
yeah,
now,
yeah.
right? Like
That
they're
Glenn
actually
Greenwald is a right winger to these people, literally.
oh,
You know what I mean?
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Um,
And let's face it, going on Nicolo Salo's Substack probably didn't do him any favors, but like, yeah, that was
yeah,
just
I mean, there's
by the
even
way.
a
I love that
picture
interview.
like way back in the day, from like 2015, maybe 2016, just after Trump got elected. There's a picture of Greenwald with weave.
That's right, there is, and they always share that photo, or they'll share the Caleb Maupin photo with is it Sam Hyde? Or no, it's with Dugan.
It's with Dugan, yeah.
Yeah, then they'll share the the Michael Tracy photo with, I think, like either Douthat or Sam Hyde. I forget. Maybe Douthat. But no, I know that they'll always circulate the weave. But you have to realize the weave of 2016 in terms of optics was much different than the weave of like 2017. And I don't mean to speak ill of anyone. You know, I'm not saying this to gossip. I'm just saying that weave was more known. The man was interviewed by MSNBC, right? And by Huffington Post back in the day. The man was known as more of a gray hat hacker than he was for his, let's say, extraneous political activities. You know what I mean? Like he was more known for that. And this is why a lot of these post-left people who are attracted to the like post-Occupy Wall Street romanticism of something like hacktivism would be photoed with someone like Weave. But then as time goes on, as 2017 comes around, 2018, when the alt-right really like cemented its presence and went through, of course, a blackpilling phase, then of course, like the Weave that we all know, well, I'm not going to say anymore, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
I know.
don't
I know.
insult
I
them,
think
but
I think it's actually good because polarization, particularly in the West, has a way, like, you know, the West has had, let's face it, over the last 300 years, it has had a tradition of moral panics, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But I would say that most people are becoming exhausted from the polarization.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it falling for it, like, you know, not attacking the critique, let's say, of a Greenwald, or even of a what's her name, the Indian woman from Hawaii,
Tulsi, Mummy Tulsi.
Yeah, Tulsi
Mommy
Gabbard.
Milkies.
Yeah.
She's
Like,
a silver fox, though. You gotta admit.
Yeah.
She's a silver fox.
Yes.
Yeah, fair
Not
enough.
that I condone that, though. Just to give. No, I'm kidding. Well, yeah, maybe unless. So in other words, you condone that type of stuff. No, I'm just saying these things really good. Oh no, listen, honey, you better not speak anymore, else you know it's kind of got embarrassing. That was a line from Goodfellas, if you remember. Yeah,
No,
Joe Pesci's character was scolding his Guma for liking Sammy Davis Jr. Oh, I might be kissing Nat King Cole over here, you know. In other words, you condone. I could just like total Italian. In other words, you condone that type of thing, like. No, but
Mamma Mia, that's Italian.
Yeah, I know, eh? But you know what's funny, though, is that as much as Italians imbibed in casual racism against black people, they always had the thing about, like, well, you know, is my neighbor, you know, I guess I gotta go bring a nice plate to, you know, Christmas, you know, they don't got a lot of money, you know, like. Yeah, my grandmother did that. Oh, my great-grandmother did that in Toronto. Like, there's this family living across the street. He's like, oh, you know, they don't got enough money. I know it's like racist by today's standards, but it's like, well, you know, they don't got a lot of money, you know, so give them a nice plate, you know. Like, I'm not going to say the word that she called them, but not the N word, you know, the Italian version of the N word. Yeah.
Fun fact: my dad and my uncle, when they were kids, they had a dog named that. It was a black dog, and they had a dog named that.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
So the word we're talking about, just listen to the Sopranos clip with Meadows' boyfriend, with Tony Soprano. That
No.
type of word.
Oh,
Is it the
dear
D word or the M
God.
word? The D word or the M word? Because in
The
Canada we
M.
use. Okay, yeah, in Canada we use the D word more. So there you, yeah. I mean, among like racist old Italians, not me, not me. Anyways, no, but that's what I mean. Like, yeah, it's sort of, what was I getting at the point about racism? Oh yeah, so, yeah, Mummy Tulsi. What are you? This is a very long tangent to say that Tulsi Gabbard is a total silver fox MILF. You know, military
Right.
mummy. I wonder
Talk
if she
about
listens to
horny
Five
on the
Finger Death
main.
Punch while she walks. Like she's a military woman. I wonder if she has a very intense cardio regimen every day. I wonder if she listens to Five Finger Death Punch while she being part of the military. Anyways, let's go ahead. Go ahead. Oh
Now, I
man.
had one other major topic I wanted to bring up because I have the privilege of having two Canadians on the show, and especially two Canadians of your mind, of course, more of a distant mind, and people who are a bit more, I guess, to say culturally and socially attuned to what I'm about to ask you. So, a phenomena I've noticed, and for years, ever since I've been on Twitter, like 2017 or so, I have always liked to harass and harangue Canadians, particularly the your average shitlib Canadian is what I'm getting at. And
Oh
yeah,
god,
well,
yeah.
I really like to get at them is
The leaf lib.
your entire national identity is trying to prove to the rest of the world that you are not an American. And I'm really
Yes.
curious about. I've talked a little bit to GSP about this. Of course, I never talked to you about this, but I just want to hear both of your full thoughts while we have probably about a half hour left before we have to wrap things up about the entire Canadian identity seemingly being based on proving you're not American, how long that's really been going on, and how deeply rooted that is in the culture, and really how, at least in my opinion, Trudeau and I saw he put out some tweet about gun control in Canada of all places, about
Oh
how
god.
his entire political career is being the avatar of these people.
Yes. Well, because of his father, because of his stepfather.
Naturally.
Stepfather. Oh man, Macisis is gonna knock on my door now. No, yeah, it comes from his. Basically, Trudeau is the apotheosis of his father, stepfather, whatever you want. Okay, I know it's a meme. I know it's probably not true, but whatever.
His
Um,
stepdaddy.
his stepdad, Pierre Trudeau. I know it's just a meme list, and I know it's probably his real dad, but then like, his mom got around. Put it that way. I've seen nudes. Anyways, yeah, there are nudes that exist of Mummy Trudeau. She was pretty
Same
good
with
back in the day.
Obama's mom, believe it or not.
There's nudes of Michelle.
No, Obama's mom.
Oh
Not
yeah,
his
the
wife.
Obama's mom. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there is nudes. I've seen. Yeah, that's right. I remember Alex Jones brought the people on that did the documentary on Obama's dad. What's his name? I forget his name.
Something Kenyan.
Yeah, yeah.
Something Kenyan.
Something Kenyan. I remember like Pastor Man. No, I'm not gonna bring up what Pastor Manny said back in the day. No, but like, so yeah, it comes as it's the logical extension of Trudeau Senior's project to, in a way, let in the door American neoliberalism or liberalism, but at the same time craft this, what people like J.J. McClellan says, what does he call it? Canadian like left-wing nationalism, or I would say rather left-wing anti-nationalism, because it very much is a nihilitive form of it. And to me, I mean, George Grant was 100% right. Just read Lament for a Nation. America, at the one end, America basically is just the dominator of Canada and the culture progenitor of every aspect of like cultural and civil life in Canada. But at the same time, we have this huge resentment over it. And America represents this evil right-wing Jesus land theocracy, as opposed to wholesome Chungus Reddit Canada. That, and I wrote this like long article called the Canada model on it. How like even Canada is a better model than even the Swedish model, quote unquote. That the Canada model is suited well for the politics of North America and the sort of like rootless multiculturalism combined with the managerial state that is more or less cemented like they are in European countries, Western Europe. combined with American culture war or appropriations of American culture war issues is more suited to the model of like what you want to call them, the globalists, the GA, whatever you want to call them. And so Canada represents, I think, this testing ground for a lot of the pathogens that will eventually spread over to America. And I think that it's the only thing holding a lot of Canadians together is that we're not America, and that is for a reason. Because Canada is even in some ways more intensely regional than America in terms of how the nation was formed and how the provinces operate and how. But then again, like I know, like the whole like Alberta separatism thing is greatly exaggerated and it probably couldn't work for a number of reasons. I used to really like JJ McClellan, but I remember the night I broke off from that other podcast. He was in the chat with that Bastiat guy, and I'm like, oh man, now I can't trust him anymore. But anyways, no, I think that so the Canada model is very unique in that it is a nihilitative form of national or post-national sentiment. It very much operates in the negative for a reason. Even the amplification of American culture war issues, like for example, what happened right after that one particular ruling last month. Is it last month? Yeah. What does Trudeau do? Month and a half. Yeah. What does Trudeau do? The first thing Justin does is we're going to give funding to have access to, assembly line Infanta you-know-whats in Canada. Full stop. And like that is just one example of the absolute like nipping yappy dog nipping at the heels pettiness of the Canada model and Canadian left-wing anti-nationalism. But Goran, I mean, I'm firmly black-pilled on this, and I'm actually going to talk to Martin soon about this issue, but you go ahead and your thoughts. I mean, we talked a little bit about this before. I mean, both of us, I mean, I'm the son of one, but both of us more or less are kind of like Ellis Islanders. So, we don't have as much, let's face it, we don't have as much loyalty to this country as some people. I mean, if I was
especially me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just the son of an.
I wasn't even born here.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God. Like, I mean, I always say this. I always preface this for my Canadian listeners. If I was an originary stock Anglophone or Francophone, I would be absolutely devastated and pissed off at the way things are now. And I sympathize with that.
Absolutely.
100%.
I feel for them. I mean, the way I first of all, I agree with everything you said about Canada and what it's come to, and the main features that people identify with now. I'll say two things in addition to that. One is the kind of quasi-reverence that Canada thought it had, especially amongst Americans in the late 90s, early 2000s, particularly after 9/11 and the invasion of Iraq. That's over with, right? And even that was it was an entirely negative approach. It was, well, we're not American, here's why.
Yeah.
But I think all of this itself stems from, us still being for a long time a British colony.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, like on the show, we covered Mackinder's visit to Canada. And, he gave 12 private lectures to Canadian governors and senators. And he gave 12 public lectures at, various universities and other areas, halls.
Yeah, he did the famous lecture. What's it called? The hall, that one particular hall, university hall.
I forget.
Massey Hall lectures, though every famous Canadian intellectual has done. They will never let me in, though. Never.
Yeah.
I'll never get to lecture about the group of 7 at Massey Hall. Oh my God.
Canada's a fascist state.
Oh yeah, they're the real fascists.
They're real fascists. So what I'll say is this. When the British Empire was still strong, and I would say in many ways it didn't know it was as weak as it was after World War I, right up in the time of Diefenbaker, there was a policy actually not to overdevelop Canada. Okay.
Yeah,
And
they
the reason,
hobbled Canada. They weaned Canada like the way that the Spartans would wean. They would give more. Was that true? They would give more food to the male children than the female children.
no, no,
That
no.
wasn't true.
They were far harder on the males.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, they meant other tribes. I'm sorry, other tribes did that, not the Greeks. You know what I mean? Like they
right, right. But
purposefully hobbled Canadian industry and the people, and they thought that the Canadian people could just be like wholesome Chungus farmers, agrarians forever, and that's it. Like,
well, the
yeah,
reason there was a strategy behind this, right? The
right,
argument that I think Mackinder presented and other Canadians presented, right, in their work with, with Britain, was that if Canada overdevelops, it will inevitably tie itself with the U.S.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
by slowing development, right, it would slow economic and structural integration with the
and
U.S.
liberalization,
Right.
yeah,
Um, and basically after World War II, you see slowly at first, and then very quickly by the time Trudeau is elected, this policy begins to disappear. And I distinctly remember that the 90s was, to me, I mean, the process had already started, but to me, the 90s, particularly with Bill Clinton,
mm,
was the beginning of a kind of an American charm offensive on Canada. It was a way to Americanize Canada.
yeah,
And we started getting all kinds of stores and businesses that were American. Of course, this is the time, Reagan started this trend, Bush continued it, and then Clinton really expanded the deregulation after the fall of the Soviet Union. He expanded the deregulation of finance. And so
yeah.
that brought in a ton of financial and economic and commercial American interests. And
On top
that
of
is what
NAFTA.
yeah, that's what Americanized Canada. And so Canada,
Yeah, and like I remember the softwood lumber thing was a huge deal. All the
yeah, yeah,
disputes,
yeah.
yeah. And
So
every time Canada brought America to court, guess who won that? American corporations won almost
yeah,
every single time. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so I think that should be mentioned. And I think much of the way Canada is right now is it really is kind of like California in many ways.
Yeah, or Oregon.
Right, but and I'm not saying that an intentionally slow structural development of Canada would have stopped, let's say, the liberal rot. I think probably would have continued. But you see the big shift that happens after World War II, and that is when that liberal rot really starts to accelerate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, when I was growing up in Toronto, older guys from the British Isles, particularly Scottish people, they would refer me to as son, right? Like that,
Yeah.
or lad. That was for me in the all throughout the 70s and let's say the first few years of the 80s, maybe up to 83, 84. That was very common in my experience.
Mm.
So I would say that that process of integrating Canada into America, and America had already started this with the Hart-Celler Act in 1965. So we had to catch up with them, and Trudeau is elected, and yeah, and then
Yeah.
you have what you have now.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like back in the 50s with Diefenbaker, that started like you could say like the mid 80s was the acceleration point with NAFTA and the way that Mulrooney had
Yes.
this like love affair with both Reagan and Thatcher. And there really was like the 80s like before neocon, like the 80s like Milton Friedman School of Economics, like the super team of Reagan, Thatcher, Indira Gandhi, and Mulrooney. and I believe
Yeah.
the guy in France was also a part of this. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like that was like the
Yeah.
super team of like neoliberal economics.
And
Like,
I have a
yeah.
friend. I'll tell you a little story. You brought up Mulrooney, and you spoke about NAFTA, but the guy who was in charge, if I recall correctly, at the time was Chrétien.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now me and this guy are no longer friends. We were good friends, but he really, really didn't like being challenged. Now, he got
Oh, is he a lib
he,
or is he?
yeah, he would
Oh, okay.
he got a scholarship to attend NYU, and then he got another scholarship to attend Princeton, and he eventually finished as a history prof. And
Oh, one of the subversive history profs,
yeah,
right?
so
Like, yeah.
so that's where he lives now. He married a woman that worked for one of the Kennedys in Boston, and
Oh God.
oh, I know, right? So
Oh my God.
so I said
Whoa.
to him when the FTAA protests were happening, I was there. I was in Quebec City for 4
Oh,
days,
nice.
and I was photographing the whole thing, and
Man, you should bring up some of those photos, man. You should post some.
sure, we
Yeah.
can do that. And I said to him, because it's something that occurred to me, right? So this is like 2001. I said the fascinating thing, and I wasn't listening. Of course, there were no podcasts. I wasn't reading
Right.
anybody. It was just strictly observation. I said, the fascinating thing about Chrétien and Clinton is that, in a way, they can introduce more globalization, and they can do it more effectively as liberals, because liberals will resist that if it's a conservative doing it, because that's the
Yes.
financialization of their culture, the privatization, blah blah blah.
The corporation's capitalist realism. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want those things, right? And that made him so angry. It
Oh,
made
was he
him
a Clintonista at this point?
no.
Oh.
I mean, maybe he was, but he looked at that like he didn't want to acknowledge that that people have strong friend enemy distinctions, and
Yeah.
I hate to keep harping on it tonight, but that's what I think caused him to have such a negative reaction to me. This is not what eventually destroyed the friendship, but it was one of those things that I think destroyed it. And he wanted to dismiss this as a kind of a conspiracy theory. And I go, there's no conspiracy theory. People just they feel safer if Chrétien and Clinton introduce globalization rather than Reagan, Bush Senior, and Brian Mulrooney, right? Like,
yeah.
I
and
go,
Casper
obviously,
Weinberger and
right.
Yeah.
And so he didn't.
And the other guy, the military-industrial complex guy that was with Reagan, the other one. Yeah.
And he himself was already like a kind of global homo convert. He was sort of becoming one. Yeah. Well, there's some good things about it. That kind of argument. But back then, I was friends with like very strong leftists, right?
Yeah. This was post Seattle WTC, right? This was yeah.
This would have been just like 2 years after Seattle, right?
Yeah.
And to their credit, to Seattle's credit, I will say that happened under Clinton administration, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that there was a kind of a charm offensive. The way I think that Obama took the heat off of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Right. So anyhow, that's what I've got.
Yeah.
Well, as not a Canadian, I don't really have much to add, but I think you've given me a whole new insight with this, and I also do have to say I know both you aren't exactly founding stock Canadians, and I'm not exactly a founding stock American myself, so I can sympathize with what you're saying, but I can say if I were fully from my mom's Scots-Irish background, I would be, I'd probably be in jail right now with the state of this country, but that's aside.
Oh, man.
Don't Fed post, bro.
I wanted to ask about we didn't get a chance to talk about, don't Fed post, about Russia, but I've heard this thing in the Canadian media in particular, they're saying the the Chechens are going to stab the Russians in the back, and the Chechens are going to fight for the blue and yellow. Even though they specifically sent the Chechens to Mariupol against the meme battalion. But
look, we've said it for 300 years, but we're serious this time. Russia is finished.
Yes,
it's over.
Yeah.
So it's going to collapse. Didn't you see the decolonization map?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, the Chechens are going to embrace early 2000s identity. Their fathers fought against the Russians, so logically they have to fight against the Russians now.
Yeah, we're shelling civilian centers, not because we're desperate. And we believe the Chechens will turn their backs on the Russians, not because we're desperate.
Well, that's just the way it
the
works,
Chechens
right?
just have a history of embracing winners throughout their whole career, their whole existence. But go ahead. Go. Oh, sorry, I cut you off, Constantine.
Well,
no.
That's just how it works. First the Chechens, and then some Central Asian or Turkic tribe you've never heard of out in Siberia gets funny ideas, and then Russia's finished.
Well, yeah, Shoigu's a Tuvar. Maybe the Tuvars will. Is that how you pronounce it, Tuvars?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, the Tuvars, they don't.
He's actually from Ukraine, but he's of Tuvar ethnicity from Ukraine.
Oh, even better. Alexander Shoigu, the man
he's literally an orc.
Yeah, he kind of
Russia is literally killing Ukrainians with orcs.
Oh
with orc commanders.
Oh my god! And like that painting that the head of Sweden, who's also a head in the EU, tweeted that painting of the Teutonic blue and yellow knights. Going against the World of Warcraft orcs. Yeah. His daughter is actually the minister of warfare psychology.
Wow.
That's pretty scary. Yeah.
Pretty scary.
But when you compare him to Millie, I mean, let's see. Okay.
Son of Genghis Khan versus absolute fill in the blank.
Yeah. The guy that can speak 8 languages fluently. The man who studied like more Russian history than even a lot of historians in the University of Moscow. I wonder who's more equipped to win a war, Millie, or another thing about Afghanistan before we go on to this. I know you got to wrap up. Apparently, General Betray. Remember when people called him Betray Us?
Yeah.
Apparently, General Betray Us is acting up. He's saying, "What's the latest with General Betray Us?" My friend Prudentialist, my good friend, he was talking about it. He was tweeting about it. But what's this thing about General Betray Us? Is he acting up now? What's going on there?
I've missed the news about it.
This is the first time I've heard it.
I think he's saying.
I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, some kind of neocon. Let me look it up. Actually.
Yeah, that sounds about right on the right track. But yeah, I could probably swing about 15, 20 more minutes before I have to wrap it up. But I suppose
maybe he started an affair with a Ukrainian woman.
Oh yeah, hey, it could be, but
okay. Apparently, General Petraeus, Taliban's still very dangerous, says former U.S. General Petraeus. Trump may be a special case, but others have paid for mishandling classified info. So General Petraeus, who, by the way, if I recall, was also a part of an info dump scandal, says that not only is Trump working for the Russians, but also he's going to give the Talachads nuclear secrets. Him and John Bolton.
They're literally projecting everything. Literally everything is a projection. It's like, is this like your way of talking about how you're telling the Ukrainians to shell the largest nuclear plant in Europe? Like, is that what it's always it's literally always projection with the Americans. Always. It's always projection.
So, well, if I remember, that's why they called him General Petraeus, because it was, I think, of an info dump scandal. I think Valerie Plame Wilson was also involved. Like when they tried to burn her, they got like Robert Nozak and the Washington Compost to like destroy her career. Like, like this people, the liberal media, the same like fucking Wolf Blitzer and that were calling him General Petraeus. Now it's like the super villain team of Trump with nuclear secrets in his toilet with the Talachads and Putin and Iran, and they're gonna like resurrect the ghost of Ayatollah Khomeini next, maybe. That'd be pretty base. Like, I can't lie. I know like he committed a lot of atrocities, all that. Not that I agree with Islamism, whatever. But you gotta admit, like, you know, Ayatollah Khomeini was truly a genius and a political visionary, to say the least. You
Right.
gotta, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think the big takeaway for me is the amount of rehabilitation that they can do by their exaggerated fear of Trump, right?
Yeah.
Like they obviously want to go in a different direction, and they're obviously afraid that that can be steered the wrong way. Like there is some kind of a panic here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for all we
General
know,
betrayal.
they're just trying to manage like a nice decline of the empire and not a collapse. For
Yeah,
all we know.
exactly. Yeah.
Maybe they think like Trump being in power could bring a lot of violence as that happens, because what Russia got $600 billion in frozen assets frozen. Most of them were euros. America just froze them. Like,
Yeah.
and they wonder why, like, 85% of the world's population is not sanctioning Russia or is working with Russia. Why they're paying for gas and oil and other commodities in the ruble, because they don't trust America. Like,
Yeah.
as far as they're concerned, it's like these guys can freeze our assets, and we have to find, a different approach. And so that in itself, this mistrust is a kind of sign of the decline. And I think they're mostly worried about what will happen to America internally, quite honestly, right?
Yeah, that's probably, yeah. I mean, I don't have any illusions about Trump winning re-election or like the dark MAGA thing. Like, I mean, that's largely a meme, but I mean, Trump, I think, does pose enough of a serious threat for them to go absolutely like postmodern, post-truth haywire, like of all systems.
He's a lightning rod. Like hating him can redeem you, liking him can make you like the most dangerous, man in America. Depending on what kind of clout you have.
Yeah, Trump is a hyper object in that sense.
Yeah, he's a hyper object. It doesn't even matter. Like he just the big thing that he did is he just unmasked them.
Yeah.
And he made openly disrespecting them and humiliating them like a sport, like a fun thing to do. And
even this tweeting,
this is
like
what
that,
has unnerved them.
Yeah. Like I was saying to my old man the other day, like when he was on. Like he tweeted like pervert alert, Anthony Weiner is back on. He added Anthony Weiner.
I remember
pervert alert, everyone under 18, Anthony, you better block Weiner. Immediately. Like the guy, like imagine a US president like yeeting you on Twitter. Like and for those who don't know, not that I agree with MoveOn.org. I believe they get some like funny money from our enemies, but MoveOn.org ad controversy. This was when the term came out, General Betray Us. They took out an ad in both the New York Times and the Washington Compost saying that General Betray Us. Fuck. I can't help the boomerism.
First time I ever heard that one.
Yeah, the Washington Compost.
He loves it. He loves it.
Yeah. Every report indicates on the ground situation interaction that the surge strategy has failed. General Betray Us says the monthly death tolls began to decline, so that's obviously bullshit. General claims reduction in violence, but actually there's more civilian deaths every month per capita and more deaths of American soldiers. According to news reports, the group later cited Associated Press. Again, another one, Associated Press. I know I grew up listening to Michael Savage. Story that this year the U.S. troops built has succeeded in bringing violence in Baghdad down from peak levels. This was obviously a lie because this is concurrent to other reports. Then, of course, betray. So this is the 2007 report by General David Petraeus of with Iraq, Ryan Crocker. It's basically his report to the White House that, the Iraq war is going swimmingly and it's amazing. We have to still be here. But we still have to be here, though, even though we're going to win. And this is right before the mission accomplished thing. I mean, for you Zoomers, I feel sorry listening to this because you don't have any cultural memory of this, but this is like, So Iraq, Al Qaeda during the surge. We've also killed a number of Shia militants in the area, even though it was later reported that the Shia militants fucking fled back to Iran. But whatever. I guess the ghost of the Shia militants fled back to Iran back in the day. And of course, but we have Shia militants in Abu Ghraib, so it's all copacetic, right? U.S. forces in Iraq with the goal of reaching pre-surge troop levels, despite allegations that Petraeus reports would be written by the White House itself. Petraeus insisted that he had written this testimony himself without it having been cleaned up, possibly by fucking some hack in the White House, like Rumsfeld's staffer, like. And then, of course, Crocker, who was the lackey of Petraeus at the time, also gave testimony. But then it came out later by independent journalists that the whole report was actually bullshit, that it was probably ghostwritten by a staffer that was working directly for Rumsfeld, and that Petraeus, kind of like his co-colleague Colin Powell, was a fucking stooge and a fall guy.
Didn't he die of COVID or something?
Yeah, Colin Powell. I wrote an article. I wrote an obituary for Colin Powell on my Substack. That's
oh my god.
Yeah. It's called Colin Powell Was Not Real.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. It was actually one of the better pieces of writing I've ever done. But yeah, so General Petraeus is like trying to do this like neocon like ghost dance revivalism of like, well, Trump is also energizing the Talachads along with like throw in all the kitchen sink, the Christian nationalists, the Trumplings, the Talachads, the Russian agents, the Russian server farm troll hackers, like just throw them all together in a blender. Oh, with the Iranians, just for added effect. And like throw them all together in the blender, and you have like the new axis of evil.
You make a great shullant of evil.
Yeah, great.
It sounds. I see the possibility of like a gay Rambo movie where third world fascism is threatening America, and there should be like a gay bodybuilder guy who fights them off.
Oh my god! But he'll have to be like a trans man.
Yeah, that's gay is so old. It's so passé now.
Yeah, because there'll be gays that will fight alongside the global fascists nowadays. So, I'm not joking. Wow.
You're talking about
like
Greg
Jack
Johnson,
the Perfume
right?
Nationalist there. It'll be like, Noam Chomsky and like Jack the Perfume Nationalist holding hands with like Matt Taibbi and like Glenn Greenwald, and then Glenn Greenwald will come out. He's like, I know that, like I said, that Bolsonaro wants to like basically G-word-eyed my people, but like, no, actually, Bolsonaro doesn't care that I'm gay anymore. I'm actually like a based fasci coy now. Then it'll like be the howling of like a million Antifa accounts. So it'll be like, yeah, we were right, Glenn Greenwald, we were right, we got him, we did it, Reddit. Glenn Greenwald's
Yeah, just to backtrack slightly a bit, it is interesting that you brought up all the stuff about Betrayus, as he is known, and just these 2000 political disputes, and it also in the light of Trump, because I just saw, just from about an hour ago, that Trump has now destroyed 3 political dynasties because Liz Cheney has lost her primary.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Oh, I fucking hate her, man. She's the worst. She's the worst.
Yeah, I heard she lost, right?
Yeah. So whatever you can say about Trump, I will always give him credit for knocking out 3 political dynasties.
We always said that he's a wrecking machine.
Yeah. He learned that from all the New York demolition companies he was doing funny business deals with. So.
Oh, those are the guys who got Tower 7, right?
Oh, yeah. No, but Trump was there, though. He knew. He saw it. So I think like that was the moment that radicalized Trump, when he saw Building 7 come down. Okay. He's like, now I have to run for president one day.
Okay.
What the fuck am I saying? I can't air this podcast.
I have to bring this up now that we've gone down this rabbit hole. Now that
I was brave enough I tweet that.
It's been completely derailed. Have you seen the theories that Trump is the Antichrist?
Yes, I've seen
God.
many of those. Yes, I
Oh,
have. Yeah,
they're
but
wonderful. And there's
yeah,
entire channels dedicated to it. Yeah, it like,
Tribulation Trump, they call him.
oh
Tribulation
yeah,
Trump.
it's I like if I'm looking for like some fun schizophrenia, that's what like me and my like the people I do this stuff with. That's our go-to. We look at some of these
Yeah,
threads, we watch some of these videos. They're fantastic. I remember one of them was
they're
was
funnier than
about
cute tards. Yeah.
was about Trump at 9/11, and it was they had a model, and okay, I don't want to expose these people too much because they like to keep a low profile, but I'll say
Oh God.
one of the groups I hang out with online, I should say, um, we make copious amounts of 9/11 jokes. I don't know why, it's just something we do. So there is, and like we have like a bunch of out of context screenshots with that kind of stuff. So there's a like this thing like in like the early 2000s where Trump proposed to rebuild the Twin Towers, and just Trump standing next to like a little model of the Twin Towers, and
Yeah.
the picture just like busts my gut,
He,
and I don't know why.
he knew. He knew.
He knew, but he did it for real estate dealings. That's probably
Yeah,
what it
what a
was.
guy.
What a
Based.
guy! Like holy shit!
It all goes back to Kushner.
Imagine being that based.
Imagine, yeah. Well, we know that Trump's his like lifelong mentor had ties to Mossad, so that's probably like,
But who doesn't nowadays? Okay, who doesn't?
yeah. Who doesn't nowadays? Yeah. I mean, I probably have some. No, probably
Oh,
not.
hey.
They give me more money. They pay out more than the Russians. But no, like yeah, that was the big like. I remember that was a big like like Telegram like Wignac conspiracy that like Trump, his like mentor was like paid off by Mossad and like yeah, they called him Z word Don. Like it's like what schizo like for anti-Trump because like the Q boomers have their like own conspiracy theories about like how Trump knew about everything and like he's like I have to be president. He's got to do it. Like and his fault and like apparently there was this Jinx video which I desperately like want to interview him for Content Minded where like people talking about Trump having like nuclear secrets which is like a total like spy thriller like throwback from the 80s. Like apparently Trump's uncle was a top level MIT nuclear scientist that like rubbed shoulders with Nikola Tesla. And Jinx made this video edit of it where like Trump talks about his uncle and like how his uncle like predicted the bomb and like how Trump is like fulfilling his family's legacy by like stealing nuclear secrets for the betterment of humanity somehow. So it's like Trump's like he's like because Trump will be like, my uncle's a very smart man. He was a scientist at MIT. He's a really smart man, but I think I'm smarter than him though. I think I'm smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that. Like
What a
I love
crazy
doing the
guy,
Trump
man.
impressions, man. I love it.
My parents loved him. He just cracked them up. And
Yeah.
like some of my like more short-lived friends that would come over. I mean, many of these people we don't speak anymore. There was no actual,
Oh, of course. Of course.
but
Yeah.
you know, they would come over, particularly my old roommate. And I will have to get going soon, but my mom goes, "He's so handsome." my old roommate, she was revolted, and so I made the case, right? I said, well, he kind of is. Like, look at photos of him from the 80s and the 90s. Look at
Yeah.
photos of Hillary in the 70s when she's not
She was
wearing
pretty hot.
dork glasses. I go, they were both good-looking people. I mean, it is what it is, whether you like them or not.
She was a good looking mid, yeah.
She was, right?
Yeah.
And she's like grudgingly agreeing because Hillary should have won, right?
Yeah.
Except for Butler. But I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to get going.
Okay, well, we can wrap up the show here in the next couple minutes, but well, of course, thank you for even just arranging this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this was
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I
All
really
credit
enjoyed
to
this.
our good friend GSP for that one.
Well, I've wanted to do a cast with Gio for a long time, and this
Yeah.
was great.
This is amazing.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, very much so.
Certainly. And I'll just leave you with one last comment you will have to edit out, just in regard to Trump and Hillary, their youthful pictures. Yeah, they looked pretty good back in the day, but I suppose that shows the corrupting effect, both physically, mentally, and spiritually, of Talmudic magic.
Oh God, you have to
Oh
edit that one
God.
out. Oh man, when Trump
No.
was like in Saudi Arabia when he held the orb, that like restored him a little bit. So there you go.
Trump restored by the power of jihad.
Oh God, Islam. Trump is the true hire of Islamaduganism. So
We
yeah,
got it all figured out. We're piecing this puzzle together. Tune in next time, and we'll give you the final results of that. But also, thank you very much, Gio, for this
yeah, no
roller
problem.
coaster of a show. This is going to be certainly one of our best. It's a lot of enriching, fruitful conversation. So if you want to plug anything last moment, now would be the time.
Yeah, let us shit post. Yeah, every Wednesday is content minded. Every Thursday is the Digital Archipelago with me and Prudentialist, both on my channel. This week it's my channel. Next week it's his. We rotate. And go to patreon.com/Giant Productions. And you will get exclusive content, including my Giant Review series. I'm halfway through the book. Although I'm late with this week's episode because I was busy this weekend. I'm halfway through Byung-Chul Han's Psychopolitics. And
Nice.
yeah, so you will get all full, uncensored, full length episodes of Content Minded because, like, roughly more than half goes for free, but are, of course, censored for obvious wrong things and words. And yeah, you will go to patreon.com and you'll get a full free one. I have if you just want like a one time donation, I also have a buy me a coffee thing.
Give
And
this man
yeah,
your money.
please give me your money or a manual typewriter. Your only hope for the future. Francis E. Deck.
I'm gonna quote some of the more let's just say spicy parts of that if this keeps going. But
Yeah.
any final words?
Uh, this has been great. God bless and goodbye. Too sweet. I'm doing the too sweet, not the Grey Wolf fascist thing. I'm referring to the wrestling new NWO Bullet Club Too Sweet. So don't worry. It doesn't mean the Grey Wolves of Turkey. It's purely a wrestling reference. There you go.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you once again, depending on how fast the news cycle goes. But we'll see you soon, and goodbye.